I love how all the pro channels have that, like you watch their streams and it has like 20 minutes of splash screen in front of it. Like the first one I did was that bad too. Should have upped my game. Get a splash screen. What's up? Is it Dugan or Duggan? How am I pronouncing that? What's up, Mickey, man? Holy crap. We're getting ramped up here pretty quick. Afternoon, my dude. Jack Army in the house. Always. Dugan or Dugan. I guess you put the hard G. Got the windrows out. What's up? It's another totally inexpensive Rocketa killer design. You can get these for like nothing. Well, not nothing, but I've got, sick jacket. Well, I always wear this. This is the Ghost Music Supervisor jacket, and I wore it in like the first two. This is like my killer. Actually, I think this is a Uniqlo jacket. I think my wife got this for me when we were living in New York. I'm not sure, but it's obviously, like it's like Noel Gallagher style. Like you totally want to, or Liam rather. Complete ripoff. Oh man, not putting that far away. All killer, no filler. So I mean, whatever. I finished the last video. I was talking about Joel Whitburn. So if you don't know who Joel Whitburn is, his name, what's really going on? It's just a bunch of charts, but his name is on like every Billboard chart book, and like every music critic, and especially every music supervisor, totally has to have all of these books. Like it's like lingua franca. You have to have these, or you're not going to be able to comprehend. Like it would just be absurd if you try to talk about music without being able to just quickly reference what was actually happening in music at a particular time. So I was thinking we could kind of chart sweep a little bit, because specifically, like, not necessarily that I'm going to do every year, but it, like, particularly the early 80s is super weird because the perception is like punk, post-punk, blah, blah, like all the things that we've been keeping alive and sort of like, I don't know if we're using them to distinguish our refined tastes or whatever, but like all the shit music fans talk about did nothing. Like the early 80s up until like essentially Thriller 82 feels so much more like the 70s. Now I was in single digits at this point. I'm like 6 years old. But there was a huge country revival in America at this time. A massive. Oak Ridge Boys, Kenny Rogers, who just passed. Just there were so many more like mainstream. There was like a mainstream fetish with country, and but not in like the Wild West kind of sense, or Old West rather, I guess. This new country that was kind of eventually goes into Eddie Rabbitt, who I talked about, and I absolutely love his stuff, but like country as a genre was totally occupying places in the charts as well. There were huge crossovers, and I'm just pulling up on the internet the UK chart from this period, because it's super crazy what was charting in aggregate. If you look at whatever the measurement, how many weeks it spent, blah blah blah, what was charting in England was like really strange, because you do have more because it's a smaller population and there's a more obsessive music press and everything, so you have a ton of stuff show up that's really cyclically strange. But like Kenny Rogers had a top 10 hit. Coward of the County was massive, and that's in England. Like it was a top 10 in aggregate in England for that year. And it just the whole flavor of like what was going on at that time is just super strange. Like I said, Colorado County started the 80s. Like, it was on everything. And then the Oak Ridge Boys came up with Leaving Louisiana and Broaddale. And this is also the period where Crystal Gale is at her biggest, and Ronnie Millsap. And Eddie Rabbitt, has hit coming on. So, as much as when we look back, we want to look at and dig up the cool music. Like, again, Eddie Rabbitt was huge. Fucking Alabama was totally massive. Willie Nelson was still getting hits. Waylon Jennings, the fucking Dukes of Hazzard theme was on FM radio. Anne Murray too. Like, there were tons and tons of huge country names that were really dominant, and even was still there in 1980, massively still there. The 1980s starts, the first Hot 100, the number one song is Please Don't Go, which I love. It's a great sort of disco ballad, Casey and the Sunshine Band. And it's this sort of if you're like a music obsessive, when you go back, right, British Steel was 1982. That's the thing. Some people there's the casual listener of music, right? Whatever, they do what they do. Then you have the genre fan who wants to know about everything that happened in punk, throughout history. And so what's going on in punk in 1980? Well, tons of stuff. Post-punk mostly by this point. But GI was late 79. So the Germs were still huge because they were doing the deal for Cruising at this time. West Coast punk doesn't really blow up. Decline of Western Civilization 1, that's filmed in May 79 to May 80. And it's brand new because Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables is 82. Obviously X, Los Angeles is 80. 1980 is sort of the 1977 of punk in the US. It's the first time a lot of real records are coming out and getting distributed to the point where anyone's going to fucking be able to get them. X's Los Angeles is the big one. That totally cracked the burbs. But the whole West Coast scene, was going on there. And in the East Coast, 1980, it was all Blondie. And to an extent, the Talking Heads as well. So, punk is sort of gassed and over, but then the hardcore thing is starting up. And yeah, Venom and there's all these things coming out of the freedom of punk, is my point, that aren't punk. So punk proper, in my view, is sort of 76 to 80. And then the stuff after that is just, BEEDADMlN, and it goes New Romantics, or it goes hardcore. It's a weird break. But yeah, I mean, what I'm talking about with these Billboard books and the idea of a chart sweep is I'm sort of I love that people are doing playlists for quarantine life. Everyone's doing playlists, everyone's going back and kind of aggregating and kind of coming up with ways to talk about certain time periods, years, whatever. I'm all for that. But the thing that interested me is, if you're beyond that sort of genre type fan and you're just generally super interested in music culture and what happened, you got to look across all genres. So what was going on in country in 1980? What was going on in disco in 1980? What was going on in emerging, hip hop, coming out of Sugar Hill Gang and into Curtis Blow and The Message and shit. If you take all the genres and you do a little digging across each one, you get a much kind of, fuller sense of what was going on across different, lifestyles, different sects of pop culture. And that to me is more interesting than, just cherry picking all the cool shit. And that's, if I could pick a band that represents what I hate about that, it's the pop group, because I think they were dog shit, and I think they were totally pretentious and bullshit. And it's sort of crass in a way too later. Just when you're trying to prove or pretend that super cool shit happened at some point in the past, that to me is a bad impulse. I'd rather try to understand the past. Do you remember Rock and Roll Radio? Right? Yeah, that was 80. That the Ramones. That was their. This is when Rocket to Russia and shit was kind of everything was rushed out so fast. Seymour Stein's sort of attitude about how the Ramones should go was like, get as much shit as you can out because this is a fad and it's going to be over in 10 seconds. He's right, sort of, but the Ramones were also right and more right, which is why they were still playing, in 86 and doing, Warthog and all this fucking awesome sort of hardcore songs at that point when Dee Dee is like trying to reinvigorate the band because they're so, they'd been so static and they just didn't have anything going on. And like SOD is coming out by that point, like fucking shit was changing really crazy with like thrash and all that. But yeah, so I mean, when you go through these books, you can really quickly get a sense of, it's not necessarily true that everyone was listening to the records that were in the charts because the charts were extremely corrupt and corruptible. But there's also no denying that those records were the ones that were getting played on radio and they were the ones getting the push. And, the 1980s starts with some pretty weird shit. Like, honestly, if Tusk is still in the charts for, the beginning part of the year. But most of 1980 in America is dominated by Pink Floyd's The Wall. That was number one the entire first half of the year. And then the second half of the year was Billy Joel's Glass Houses. And then the Rolling Stones' Emotional Rescue finishes out 80. Like, those are the three huge records of 1980, really. The Wall, Glass Houses, and Emotional Rescue. There's other shit going on. I talked before, or I don't know if I talked about it in the quarter on here, but like Jackson Browne was doing that no nuke shit. So he was on a big peak with Holdout, which was big. And then of course, I think when you casually look back with an eye to like what was going on in 1980, a lot of people are immediately going to think about yacht rock because that's when like Christopher Cross is at his peak. That guy, what's his name? Robbie Dupree or whatever, who did Steal Away, the Doobie Brothers ripoff. You can fucking fact check me on that if you want. I forget his name, but it's Steal Away. Dun, 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 and it's What a Fool Believes. And like at the time, people were gobsmacked that you could get away with this. Like, it's a fucking note for note rewrite. Are you shitting me? But he got away with it. It charted. It did really well. But yeah, there's weird things that if you look at how long they're on the chart, it's sort of like that tells you whether people were really buying it or whether it was a push. Like if it's a push, it's only going to be on the chart for like 3 weeks. If it's there kind of pretty steadily charting for months, then it's a hit. And there's a couple of weird trends. Like the second half of the year, the Police were really doing well in America. Zenyatta Mondatta was charting low, but in the top 10 and shit. And at that time, that's pretty crazy. I mean, it's on A&M, so that helps. But 80 is weird because Lennon's still alive most of 80, John Lennon. And that all changes. And it makes 81 like this fucking weird hangover because he gets murdered. And 82 is sort of like where, hey, it's a new decade. Let's dust everything off. And, Don't You Want Me has been a hit. And there's cracks starting to, in the kind of oppressive mainstream culture. So really the 80s starts in 82 for the most part. If you go and look back at what was really going on, there's just such a distortion that happens when hip music critics and folks that want to talk about everything great that was going on back when. Funny. It distorts things. So, in 1980, I talked about Jackson Browne. One of the big beneficiaries of that was Damn the Torpedoes. Tom Petty was absolutely fucking huge. I think, Bruce comes back in the picture. Hungry Heart was 80, wasn't it? Pretty sure. McCartney too was 80 as well. Oh my God. But you know, like popular culture, it's just crazy how the album charts don't line up with the singles charts at fucking all. Like, right, that's exactly the point I'm getting to. Bowie had 2 fucking massive singles in 80 with Fashion and Ashes to Ashes. But the album doesn't like fucking chart. Back in Black was 80. You know, barely cracks, doesn't get to number 1. Had like 3 weeks in the top, no, a month, solid month at the end of the year. Back in Black is in the top 10. But, you know, there's just weird things like that. Where again, if you look at the album charts and what breaks up to that top 10 level, it's the singles, it just doesn't line up. It's a strange dichotomy. And I would say the reason I am getting, talking about that is that changes so massively after MTV and Games Without Frontiers was 82, which is funny if you think about like Fashion and where Bowie was at, and Peter Gabriel 3, it's kind of interesting in that way. Warm Leatherette, Grace Jones, yep. 90s didn't start till like 91, 92. I disagree, actually. I think the 90s started in like 88. It felt so different from the rest of the 80s by about 88 that 88 to 92 feels like 190s, and then 92 to 97 feels like Nirvana. It's a very different thing, and it has obviously a lot to do with my age and impressionability at that time, being like 15 in 1990. Early 80s was the height of Bruce Springsteen's popularity. No, it's Born in the USA, which is pretty much mid 80s. I mean, he was always a lord, and a concert god and everything. I mean, that's the other piece of this too. You got to remember, like, concerts are a huge fucking deal. Concerts and albums are sort of paired in a way. So like Fleetwood Mac and fucking Bruce Springsteen and, all this stuff is like, and the Eagles are still selling a fucking shitload. But, there's all these different ways people reacted with and interacted with music, and just some shitty red wine. Yeah, the river in Nebraska didn't chart. Like, they weren't. Nebraska was a fucking failure. Like, again, critical referendum doesn't mean shit. It's not reality, and that's exactly the sort of thing I'm talking about. Biggest brand in Britain in 1980 were Unknown in America. No, I don't. I would doubt that. I mean, the biggest band in England in 80 is, I don't know what you're trying to get to with that, but Blondie, they had like 5 hits in England that were like, because Tide is High, Call Me they didn't even have it in England. The Pretenders had their first bit. Brass in Pocket was 80. But I mean, when you switch that, when you stop talking about like legacy artists and what they were doing in 1980 and blah, 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 and you start thinking about the fabric of pop culture and like singles on the radio, one of the biggest hits in 1980 was Funky Town by Lip Sync, like worldwide. Some, disco fucking studio project out of, I think, Minneapolis. And that song was huge. It was just so massive and so omnipresent, ubiquitous. Oh my God, it's just crazy. And when you go through the Hot 100, that's where you start to see, okay, there's a lot more going on here, because the singles are getting tons of airplay, but the records aren't necessarily selling. And the album charts are so totally asymmetrical because they cost a lot more money, albums. And so that creates this huge separation in the consumer space. It also creates a huge separation, like I said, with concerts, touring, promotion. That distinction where singles are their own economy, hasn't died at all. It's still doing really fucking well. And I don't, until the disposable income for, middle, upper class, whatever, people starts to really tick up in the mid 80s. That's when nobody gives a shit if you're buying an album or a single or whatever, especially when CDs come out. But yeah, what was this thing doing? There it is. I don't know. It's hard to be definitive about it. Yeah, Sound Effects was 1980, the Jam, and that was huge. obviously massive in England. But the other thing too is that England had the whole two-tone, all the specials were Mirror in the Bathroom was 80. The fucking Lambrettas were 80. Like no one in America's heard the fucking Lambrettas. That was 80. There was a bunch of that, you know, Madness, I think did Madness chart in 80? I think they did. There was a ton, yeah, Baggy Trousers was 80. There was a shitload of like, that did nothing in America. And like, you know, I talked about how Please Don't Go is the number one, you know, in America at the actual start of the first chart of the 80s, January 5th, I think it was. You know, that even charted in England too. But yeah, it's this whole tracking of kind of what was doing what where. I mean, Enola Gay is 1980, so you know that's the very first shot across the bow, sort of. Spandau Ballet or around, and there was early UB40 too. What was that song? The Earth Dies Screaming was 80, and but you know you still have Kool and the Gang, you still have Diana Ross. Diana Ross's greatest hits was like the biggest selling album for most of that year, and yeah, there's just it's all the different threads. All the different threads are really interesting. And I was talking about country because it doesn't get remembered. Country is serially ignored by music fans, and I'm not suggesting I'm like this big country acolyte or that I love country music, but there was really fucking cool crossover pop country that was just doing massive fucking numbers, Iron Man numbers in 1980, and it's not reflected if you look at the pop charts because country was ghettoized. It's completely crazy. It was totally classist, like this is for rednecks. And there's so much good shit in there. I don't know. It's weird. Metal was still pretty niche. Oh, yeah. New wave of British heavy metal was way fucking bigger in America. Oh, my God. The only charting thing for Madness. No. Baggy Trousers. That was big. Ace of Spades. Yep. Boy came out in October. Not big, but it came out that year. Boy was October. Crocodiles was 1982. Echo and the Bunnymen. I mean, if you want to get into all that shit, you know, like Teardrop Explodes, Kilimanjaro was 1980. Like all those... that whole, you know, post-punk British shit that everyone will not stop talking about, you know, forever. That's what I'm saying when I talk about Eddie Rabbitt and country and shit. It's like, there's whole fucking universes of, this is pop. I'm not asking you to listen to fucking like, you know, 7/8 jazz, or fusion bullshit. Or like there was all like the Corgis was 1980. Nobody in America knows the fucking Corgis. Who the fuck was it? Beck? Somebody did a cover of it for Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. That Corgi song, because of 10cc's I'm Not in Love, was huge in fucking England because it sounded like 10cc. But in America, it was like a non-issue. Corgis, nobody fucking remembers it. No one's heard of it. Yeah, Beck did it. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Who fucking cares what he does? But yeah, that's the 12-inch from Our House is the only charting thing for. Oh my God, Madness? No one in America knew who fucking Madness were till they had that novelty video of them in like a fucked up, smashed out, you know, block of tenement shit, and that made them an MTV phenomenon. But they had already been really big, you know, in England for years, and they're great. They're fucking great. But yeah, yeah, that disco thing is so crazy because like when you start, you still have so much AM Gold and 70 shit and Hot 100. Like, do that to me one more time. Captain and Tennille is top 10 first week in 1980. You know, like, you just, you know, Smokey Robinson's in there. The new sort of stuff is like Prince, you know, I Want to Be Your Lover. That was legit big. That charted in 80. You know, Zeppelin's not even cracking, you know, Fool in the Rain didn't even get major FM play because it was such a complicated, stupid song. The second part's not something like the first part. Rapper's Delight was still on the chart. That was still top 50, I think, in 80. But yeah, it's sort of strange that how long it took for the 70s to sort of end, because, you know, new wave gets all this MTV support and, you know, the fucking Buggles, you know, Video Killed the Radio Star and all that shit's 80. Cars didn't do anything until, you know, in America until MTV, really. And you know what? Not credit, but important early outlier. The Gary Newman's drummer was black in the video anyway for Cars. He was still playing with him. Diva was, you know, big. Whip It was so huge. No, they were, oh my God, they were on like daytime TV radar for their insanity. I mean, I remember being at my neighbor's house when, like, what year was that? Is that on it? Because I don't want to get my memories all screwed up, because there's a couple of things I remember. And I think I have the year wrong. Yes, I'm getting this confused because I was thinking my neighbor, that fucking Neil Diamond song, Turn On Your Heart Light, and Billy Joel's Pressure. This is all 82. I'm on the next album in my memory. So the stuff I really, really have strong memories of doesn't start until probably like 81, 82. But yeah, a crazy little thing called Love and Fool in the Rain were like sister songs for a lot of people, Zeppelin and Queen, and they were big at this. We have no memory for R&B and disco or soul. Yeah, definitely true. No, the Police were so primed for synchronicity. Like, they were doing really well. Don't Stand So Close to Me was fucking massive in 1980 in England. Really big. I mean, I think in aggregate, it may be, where does it come in aggregate if you do the numbers? Don't Stand So Close to Me is top 10 in aggregate. And that's alongside weird shit like Working My Way Back to You, Detroit Spinners. And the theme from MASH. This is the other thing. Suicide is Painless, the theme from MASH. This song was so fucking enormous after they canceled MASH. It charted top 10 like everywhere. And is one of the biggest songs of 1980 by a shitload. Video Killed the Radio Star. Yeah, it's a song by this cheesy. Were you saying you didn't know who the Buggles were and you're asking me about that song? Or because that was 1980. But yeah, I don't agree that it's a great song. But, you know, this is the Skinny Tie thing that starts, that becomes the knack, that becomes the sort of acceptable new young music, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, Message in a Bottle was number 100 on the first chart of 1980. It actually was on the Hot 100 in America, number 100 for 1 week. I think it falls right off after that. But yeah, John Cougar, as he was then known, started out then with I Need a Lover. That did great. But the other thing, too, is, you know, when I talk about these chart books and reviewing the history and everything, it's how slowly things changed. Week over week, you have just subtle sort of moves, you know, like Head Games by Foreigner is consistently in like the 20s for weeks at a time. Like, that has its own temperature in FM radio, the 20s. Like, they're played X amount of times at X amount of time of day. And this feel of how things used to work, it's totally interpretable if you go through and you read this as a text. And that in itself is kind of cool in a way to understand, like, wow, you know, like so-and-so band was doing this then. And our memories get infected by a lot of different patterns, because 80 is like Sarah by Fleetwood Mac is a huge hit. I don't know when that comes in. Yeah, February and March and April, and it's still there. And it's just like, you can just see the reaction. Like, Crazy Little Thing Called Love was number 1 for I don't know how many weeks. Rock With You was huge. And then, you know, Do That To Me One More Time. Oh my God. That song was fucking escapable. Do That To Me One More Time. Nothing feels like a fucking amber ashtray more than Do That To Me One More Time. Like, oh God. Just like wood paneled fucking giant TV, thick shag carpet, amber fucking ashtray, disgusting stale fucking tobacco smells of other kids' houses. That one kills me. But yeah, like I was talking about, Damn the Torpedoes Don't Do Me Like That was doing really well. But again, it's like John Denver, you know, Neil Diamond, all that. Barry Manilow, When I Wanted You was in 80. And Pina Colada Song, yeah. when you go through this stuff, this is also 1980 is when 38 Special gets their first hit, Rockin' Into the Night. Rockin' Into the Night. Oh man, that is some good boogie bullshit. But they have legit connections to Leonard Skinner, so fucking 38 Special is good shit. Spirit of Radio Rush. Oh my god. But yeah, Brass in Pocket was a UK US crossover smash that was huge. But then as soon as Another Brick in the Wall gets released, that's another thing. You know, I was talking about how The Wall ran the album charts, but they also ran the singles charts. Like Another Brick in the Wall was number one for almost 2 months until Call Me came out. And Call Me was an instant number one. And so yeah, this is to me like spring. This is April of 80. This is when it starts to feel like, okay, this has a sort of almost tone of 1980. Yeah, Women and Children First, that everybody wants some. Joan Jett, yep, Black Hearts, Bad Reputation. Yeah, totally fucking huge records. But yeah, the top like sort of 10 starts to change a little bit. And you get like Call Me, Another Brick in the Wall, and Ride Like the Wind. So, I mean, again, Christopher Cross is so fucking good. I think it's bullshit I think the yacht rock thing is bullshit because there were tons and tons of artists, you know, trying to do yacht rocky things, but like he's so signature. He's so unique. He's fucking great. Yeah, you know, Journey kind of starts to get bigger hits here. It's just such a disconnected, and this is the other one that, I mean, I talked about Do That to Me One More Time. Bette Midler's The Rose. I can't hear that song. If I hear Bette Midler's The Rose, I have like border panic attacks because of, I don't know what it was. There was some incident, something happened. I think I was in a car with my mom. That song makes me physically ill. Like it's one of the only songs that I've ever heard that if I hear it, I get like sick. Like I feel like I'm car sick. I can't even describe it. Just like seeing the word The Rose in print hurts me. Don't Cry for Me. Argentina was 80. Yeah, that got on the chart. But it's such a stagnant kind of just, you know, flat, colorless period. And not in like a black and white way or like a nuclear family way. It's just this kind of like ass end of the 70s, you know, horrible depression. Reagan's gotten elected. Mortgage rates are like 26%. Like, you don't even, the economy, not in England and in the US, I talked in, you know, when I was talking about the unemployment rolls, you know, 1982 was the big one, but everything was so fucking bad and money was so tight, and you haven't had the turnaround in the American auto industry yet. Like all the cars are fucking shit boxes. And then you get the K cars coming up, you know, Lee Iacocca and all that shit's about to happen. You have the was it Terry McAuliffe, the prisoner shit with Iran, and, you know, Morning in America. And it just feels like the hangover from the disco in the 70s and Coke and Quaaludes and all that shit. You know, I think you got to hand it to Boogie Nights. That movie does sort of capture how dark and just voided out the super early 80s were on the back of this huge, you know, oh my God, I can't imagine Northern England. I mean, you know, all of England was totally, nothing got back on track. I said in another video until like basically the mid 80s, 84, like midway through 83 into 84. That's when things start to get a little bit freshened up. But prior to that, it's painted rust. There's nothing fucking happening. And, you know, Pink Floyd's The Wall, I think, I've talked about it before, and when Pitchfork did the top 100 of the 70s, I put it at number one. Because if you look at everything else that was going on, it's a pretty astonishing accomplishment, you know, for the time. Yeah, rolling blackouts everywhere in England. It's horrible. To say nothing of Scotland, Jesus Christ. But another thing too, like when people talk to you about like Bob Seger, they don't realize like Against the Wind was 1980. Like, you know, they think it's so much older than that. But there's also the reissue thing, you know, that's part of it. But yeah, it's that this whole year, you know, Cars. Somebody mentioned Gary Newman. That's a big summer song from 1980. That's when that starts to chart. Have I seen the doc of people in Liverpool garbage hunting? That sounds fucking horrible. But I will go check it out. I will. Yeah, we were talking about Glass Houses, man. Still rock and roll to me. So I don't. Billy Joel. My sister loved Billy Joel. Billy Joel was so big. He was so big. It's almost impossible to describe how Billy Joel is like the musical equivalent of Cheers. If you probably don't understand or know what Cheers is, but like the absolute fucking ubiquity of Billy Joel in the 1970s and 80s. Everyone had decided he was their buddy, and Billy Joel is just like them. Even though Billy Joel's like drinking a bottle of scotch every night after the show and doing coke until 5 a.m. and behaving like one of the biggest fucking louse, like disgusting rock star maniacs you could imagine, but nobody knew it. And the people who didn't really point it out. They sort of were like, yeah, you can do that all you want, but you're still going to be Billy Joel. He was fighting against this like he was fighting against this sort of neutral everyman nothingness that totally prevented him from having an identifiable ego in the press. And It's Still Rock and Roll to Me video when he's drinking the grenades of Budweiser and trying to rock out. It's like, yeah, no one's ever going to look at you like that. You're like, Bruce has got sort of working man marketing and everyman qualities to him, but he's a fucking uniquely beautiful guy. And his voice and his energy and everything about him has this histrionic, you know, I don't even know what kind of, he's like, you know, kind of on the mountain bellowing, you know, hysterical, not positivity, but it is a sort of joy. It's a sort of, I'm a witness to the human condition, you know, exchange. Billy Joel writes little vignettes, like little short stories, you know, and his vignettes are very, I don't know, they're very comprehensible and concise and compact. And so for that, Billy Joel is like a baker. He's like making you little treats and dishes. And, you know, Bruce doesn't do that. It's like a fucking dirge. His song, even his poppiest songs are like big. I mean, Bruce's choruses are the biggest choruses ever. And Billy is just this, he was taking shots at everybody around this time. He really lost his shit. He was in an alcoholic puddle, 52nd Street, that whole run, Glass Houses, The Stranger, like, he was a fucking train wreck of such a booze bag. I mean, he's always been a booze bag. He's probably, you know, up until the point where they were like, you're going to straight die if you don't stop this shit. I mean, when Elton John is coming out in public and being like, Billy, my lad, you have to stop this nonsense or whatever, when he's like 68, I mean, that guy is just, there's so much bitterness. And it's because he's blaming other people. He's blaming the press. He's blaming these cooler, you know, musicians that he thinks are phonies. It's like the way Van Halen said the Clash had apple juice in their whiskey bottles, famously at the US Festival in '83. Billy, he's got this old world thing. He does. I'm not trying to say anything racist because he's, you know, represents for Italians or something, or ethnically, you know, generalist, but the way he approaches songwriting is very much in the tradition of the Brill Building and songcraft and storytelling and motifs. and he's incredible at it. I think it's completely cloying and fucking corny and ridiculous, and I can't stand him. But I did, when I was a kid, like proto getting into music and understanding music could be an avenue for, you know, phony distinction and cool. I had Greatest Hits Volume 1 and 2. It's sort of a tome. I always hated Piano Man. It just creeped me out and made me think of adults drinking and smoking and shit. But like, there's some really good up tempo, again, really compact songwriting, and Still Rock and Roll to me is now, and you know, I'm older. Still Rock and Roll to me is a great fucking song. It is. It's funny as shit. It's the same. It's like a Huey Lewis song. It's if you know going in that you're not cool, and Huey Lewis knew that going in he was too old to put himself off as cool. And by this point, Billy Joel is too old and established to be cool. But you're getting told there's all this new shit that's super fucking cool in the shit. And I think It's Still Rock and Roll to me is his best song in that respect. He gets something out of himself that's real, that's bothering him, that's eating at him. It's like the way, you know, Steven Tyler talks about writing a song and, you know, fixing someone. I'll fix your ass, he says. Like, that's his reaction because he's not a fighter. And Billy Joel is sort of, this is all that pent-up frustration when he's hearing from record companies. He's got to change his image. He's got to update his image. New wave is the order of the day, you know. But, you know, Billy Joel's into music, and he's backstage with everybody at every show, so he knows exactly what the fuck's going on. He's known about Blondie since the first fucking word, and everything is remote for him because he's trying to maintain a celebrity and a success that's just fucking astronomically off fucking planet from any of these other bands and people. And he knew what it was like to fail because his debut in early Cold Spring Harbor were fucking flops essentially. Until Scenes from an Italian Restaurant, he has nothing fucking going on. And can you believe how much information I have stored about fucking Billy Joel, who I don't even fucking like? Like, what the fuck? How can I conversationally just be riffing on fucking Billy Joel? But he's a linchpin. He's a fucking major fucking, you know, rock star in American history, blah, blah, blah. Did he throw a tantrum in Co-Wept, the Russian live album? I had that tape. Yeah, his manager fucked him over, took all his money, but he didn't know that until way fucking later. This one I'm talking about here is like a dude with something he's fucking chewing on, who's pissed that he's been displaced by younger trends and shit. And he's getting told he's not cool anymore. And that fucking hurts, man. I've been there. I am there. We know more about music we hate sometimes. Well, you do if you're a thinking person. Like, you don't just go, that sucks, and never think about it. Why do I think this sucks? Why does this bother me? What bothers me about it? And I just think it's kind of milquetoast. And like I said, you know, it's too compartmentalized. It's too storybook. It's why I never really liked Elton John. You know, when all these fucking people, like, it was like they couldn't wait to admit they liked Elton John when Almost Famous came out. And I was like, no, this still sucks. Tiny Dancer does not make me cry. You know, I just, whatever. There's a video right after the USSR allowed shows, and they keep hitting the audience with spotlights, and they freeze, and Billy Joel ended up tipping his piano and smashing a mic stand. That's 87. That's right around when Co-Wept came out, his big Russian, because he wanted to, you know, he was the biggest artist in the world. You know, we're being invited for the privilege to play in Russia in the late 80s, and, you know, you had Monsters of Rock. Quit fucking with my show, he says. That's great. I'll have to go look that out. I don't know about that. I remember Co-Wept because it had the embossed lettering on the cover, and people said he was being pretentious and he was trying to be like the Beatles. And he was like, I can't fucking win. And he just was like losing his fucking mind at how everybody was just dicking on him. It was just like dick on Billy Joel. Always. Everybody dicked on him. I don't know. It's weird. I think you can dick on him. Yeah, God, I have to get to a chart where the rose isn't in it. But yeah, Cars, anything else at 1980? I mean, again, the big thing for 80 is that like punk is over, and like Blondie knows it, but they're still holding on to, you know, the Call Me sort of, you know, edge, which is nothing like Rip Her to Shreds or anything, but it's still like, it's a pretty fucking raw song. And then you got the soundtrack for American Gigolo, and soundtracks don't become the vehicle. So this again would have been one of the things I would have done if I started the Music Supervisor channel, which is where I talk about how this whole thing starts with soundtracks and that nobody figured this out. The first person to do it was George Lucas with American Graffiti. And then gradually, they start to realize, like, this works in a million different ways. And the first thing they tried to do with soundtracks is get original songs, like the signature song, the theme from the movie. And that really starts with Midnight Cowboy. Randy Newman starts with in The Graduate. And those two sort of, the theme from becomes a thing. And that carries all the way to 1980s with the theme from Arthur's theme. That distinction sort of starts to shift when it becomes, well, let's not just make it the theme from the movie and the songwriter goes and writes this, you know, here's the script and what do you think? You know, theme from New York, you're right. Sinatra was 80. It starts to become, let's get the hippest MTV, biggest pop star to do a song. And it shifts with Against All Odds, Phil Collins, which is a commissioned song for an officer and a gentleman. And then it becomes Cyndi Lauper, Goonies Are Good Enough. And it just, that whole thing is the 80s. It's launching songs, movies, tie-ins, product placement at the most ham-fisted fucking level. And nothing changes until Tarantino and his famous music supervisor, what's her name? Not the one who did the later stuff, the woman who did his initial stuff and helped him with Reservoir Dogs. Jesus Christ. Oh, God, my brain is frying. Debbie Harry Scarface song. Yeah, Derek and the Dominant. Well, so, and then again, if you're going to talk about this, Scorsese's the fucking man. He's the one who did it first. If you read any article, any history, there is no music supervisor that did this for Scorsese. He did it all himself. Every movie. Scorsese is the one. Karen Rackman, thank you. At least I remembered it was Karen. Jesus, my brain's fried. Dude, the amount I prepped to do the music supervisor channel to have not done it is ridiculous. There's so much shit I wrote and mapped out and I just never did. But Martin Scorsese chose Sid Vicious as My Way. There's no music supervisor. He did everything. And he's the fucking total, like, he's the master. But George Lucas did it before him. And George Lucas did a really good job. And George Lucas spent so much money licensing the music for American Graffiti that A, they released it as a double album to try and recoup. But B, there's no score to American Graffiti because he spent all the money licensing those songs. And the entire budget that he blew to license all those doo-wop girl group songs, Elvis wanted more than that for one song. So there's no Elvis in American Graffiti. Anyway, let's get serious. Jermaine Jackson, that's right, 1980. The Brothers Johnson Stomp. Oh my God, these are so weird. Oh, and the other thing, Dr. Hook charted both sides, Sexy Eyes, both sides of the Atlantic. Against the Wind, Bob Seger. Oh God, I love Bob Seger. Silver Bullet Band, so good. And there's that early, what's that band? People are finally realizing, oh, because it was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the old shit. That fucking awesome hard rock song he had early on is in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is like the only good cue in that whole piece of shit movie. Love Stinks is 82. Jay Giles totally goes from being a fucking boring whatever suit, almost prog band, bluesy band, to pop songs with Love Stinks. And I actually posted Centerfold on Twitter today. God, I love the song Centerfold. It's so, like, that was the first song I heard that just made me hysterically, like, jumping around the room. I wanted to smash chairs. Like, that, na, like, oh, God damn. It's so fucking perfect, man. Love Stinks is not a great song. I agree. It's such a dinky, jokey, but that's how frustrated they were with their career. You got to understand where they were at. They were so fed up. They're like, fuck it, joke song. You know, and it opened doors for them to be like, oh, well, Peter Wolf is like, well, let's just write some pop songs then. And they're really fucking good at it. Freeze Frame, Centerfold. Dude, that album is fucking as big as the Cars sell out with You Might Think. Like, those two records were so huge. American Jiggle. Yeah, I talked about that in 1980. Who made the decision to use the Gary Glitter song in Joker? Well, again, I was going to do a bit where because there's YouTube videos out there of people suggesting alternate songs for the Joker staircase shot. And it's a great example of something that comes right through the popular consciousness of how music supervision translates and how it's also sort of on offer. Like, people are increasingly aware of music supervision. Media is increasingly easy to manipulate at a professional level. So this sort of becomes suggestions. And at some point, like, does like everything's just up for discussion in a real interactive way. Like, the Joker staircase is a meme. So everyone's throwing every song over that, you know, and it loses all meaning. Or it becomes infinite meanings, you know, I don't know. But I one of the threads I was going to go down in the music supervision idea is that, like, we're running the risk of this no longer mattering. If you keep using the same songs in every fucking show, they cease to have any meaning. Stranger Things using Time After Time and so many massive top line 80s songs because they could afford to. It was a flex Nora Felder was doing. If you just keep doing this, both the movie and the songs lose all of that investiture and kind of mingling. And it ceases to become, it becomes, what's the word really? It just becomes, I don't know. It's hard to come up with a word, but it's denuded of meaning, and it becomes too pliable, too fluid. And yeah, Urban Cowboy was the one that was big in 1980, not Midnight Cowboy. But yeah, piano covers are where it was my mind. And the whole thing of hollowed out piano covers, which is the whole reason that happened, is everybody wanted to license Something I Can Never Have by Nine Inch Nails, and he wouldn't let them sync it. So instead of syncing that, well, I'll do a hollowed out piano version of anything else. I mean, or, you know, go back and sync Tori Amos then. I don't fucking know. The whole thing is so commoditized and so bad now. It's just ridiculous. And if anybody in the world thinks they're going to fucking pivot from being a music journalist to a music supervisor, God fucking help you. It doesn't work like that. Music supervision is the biggest fucking joke of a non-career you could ever imagine. It's not real. Every single one of them is a hanger-on, somebody's friend. It's not real. Just stop. I mean, I had a dalliance with this, and I can tell you there's no fucking way. It's never going to happen. First of all, there's way too many. Everyone's a self-brand. Everyone's got their own shop. Everyone's got their own, you know, music supervision consulting agency, bullshit like that. Or they're part of a giant advertising agency, and it's like just a little, you know, adjunct department that grew out of like sub-rights and mechanicals. Like, it's just, stop the fantasy. And I really wish they would stop marketing people like this, even though they're doing great work. And the woman who did Marvelous Miss Maisel has done such a good job, except for the fucking anachronistic use of Cities and Dust, which is in danger of becoming one of the most overused 80s syncs ever. I think it's in Grosse Pointe Blank. Like, Cities and Dust gets, because it must be cheap. It gets used everywhere, excuse me, looking for that Monopoly money to handpick Fugazi Waiting Room in Stranger Things Season 4. Well, again, so then this is the problem, right? A band like The Cure would never let their music be licensed. Do you know how long it took them to just persuade Robert Smith to let him put the Love Cats in some UK indie movie about two, you know, girls in the 80s? They had to like write him letters and shit because he had total control of his masters and he wouldn't let them be used. It's fucking over. Shit got sold up Universal. They're syncing The Cure everywhere. It's in fucking Mr. Robot Season 1. So the problem is that bands ran out of income streams and they had to sell their rights because you can't make money on music anymore. You can make money on the rights, but it's a one-time nut. And then, yeah, if you go into a good relationship with a publisher, you know, yeah, you can get syncs around like 30 grand, 50 grand. One of the movies I wanted to talk about, it was Atomic Blonde. The guy who did that did Deadpool, and he paid like $125K for Careless Whisper for Deadpool. But most syncs are between like 10 and 50. I mean, think about it. If you're in a band and you're getting like, you know, $6 from Spotify and you let your music be synced to, you know, one of these fucking shows, you know, fuck it, whatever. Fresh Off the Boat. Danny Brown is like the main theme song of Fresh Off the Boat, which is, what the fuck? That wasn't around. It's supposed to be a 90s show, but that's how they get it. No, it was the actual recording. It's the single mix. that's in Mr. Robot. If you're not familiar with the single mix of Pictures of You, it is dramatically different than the original album recording on Disintegration. I actually love it. I've repeatedly told people that they need to seek out this extended remix, which was the video mix of the single mix, which is like 8.5 minutes long. I love it. How much do you think they spent on Boogie Nights or Goodfellas? Christ, if I know. Back then, this whole thing is mysterious. No one talks about it. It's just legal. And that's the other thing. If you actually got involved in music supervision or knew anything about it, it's all contracts and talking to lawyers. There's nobody's like the number of times that artistic persuasion or emotional persuasion has been involved in securing a music cue is like 1 out of 1,000. It's just emailing a fucking lawyer. Okay, here's what it costs. Okay, here's the check. There's nothing to it. Like people get wrapped up in the romantic idea of participating and creating this multimedia show with music. And I'm the music person. I know so much about music and I can help make the show more refined and the music choices, obscure, but not so obscure that it's meaningless. It still has some cultural value. It's going to help enrich the scene and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I went on this rant in the music supervisor video, which I would never put out something that nasty now, but it's also fucking true. And it's silly and it's stupid that these people are trying to make celebrities of themselves and sanctify the notion of being a music supervisor when it's just literally doing fucking contracts and subrights. It is so fucking boring. The most interesting thing that could ever happen to you as a music supervisor is that you find out that the sync is different from the master, and that of the two sides, you have to actually get in touch with the artist to see if they're okay with you using it because they still own the master. That's it. That's the only fun thing that happens to you. If the master and the sync are both controlled by third parties, it's a fucking email chain. It's the least sexy thing you will ever do in your life. Nobody has fun. No music supervisors enjoy their job. They're going to be tweeting at you. Oh man, here's what we chose for the new episode of What the Fuck. It's so great. Blah, blah, blah. Oh God. Bela Lugosi's dead in a Dane Cook, Jessica Alba romantic comedy. Oh, that's tight. I got to fucking see that. That's fucking awesome. That's great. Jeff Lynne wanted nothing to do with Boogie Nights until right before the film came out. PTA got him to see the rough cut. Yeah, those stories are real. And those are the only stories they're going to retell those stories forever. I had to email the Burundian government for Master of None. I had to send a passionate email to Neil Young. I had to, they had to do this with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood for one of the songs, I think. But it's so few and far between. And those are sort of the posters you hang on your wall of the one thing that was cool that happened. That Cure mix is on the mixed up like 3 CD bullshit. It's on Spotify. I forget what they named it, but they made up a new name for it. But it's like 8 minutes and something seconds long. It's the single mix of Pictures of You completely rearranged from the album version. And it was used in the long form 8+ minute video that was shown specially on 120 Minutes when the Cure, they had a special episode of 120 Minutes dedicated to the Cure around the time of Disintegration and Mixed Up. Yeah, Flaming Lips on 90210. That has nothing to do with music supervision. They were just trying to, the Peach Pit was like an effort to get some cool on the show because the show was not fucking cool. Have Talk Talk songs been in films made from It's My Life? It was Life's What You Make It was in Grand Theft Auto Vice City. That's bigger than a movie. That song is burned in so many fucking kids' minds from Vice City. Oh my God. I mean, the Vice City soundtrack was the Grand Theft Auto soundtracks up until 5 with the radio stations. That there's an entire generation for whom that defines like the tone and tenor of pop music completely. Like it's fucking crazy. What was it, like 9 CDs worth of shit they licensed? It's crazy. But that it's, again, I talked about it in another one of these live streams about how labels know this now. There's so much money. Excuse me. They're setting up shop everywhere. Labels are just becoming, what do I own the rights to? Cherry Red, Sub Pop, they're all doing it. And more power to them, whatever. The Rock Band generation. Sure, yeah, that was different too. And they had a nice wedge there where they're telling artists like, no, we're not just licensing your song. Kids are going to learn how to play it. They're going to form a relationship with your song and they're going to learn how to be musicians. It's educational. It's like 4 buttons. What the fuck? So dumb. Running Down a Dream is the sound of Los Santos. Fuck, man, I can't believe Tom Petty's dead. Full Moon Fever was so fucking righteous. That's such a good fucking. He's great. He's just such a good songwriter with like nothing. You know, he can just do nothing with 3 chords. He can make a fucking song you listen to for the rest of your life. What else was big in '80? We're only in the summer. Oh God, I've been on for an hour. I know all the words to Louisiana Woman, Mississippi Man because of GTSA. No shit. Running Down Dream was so good. Yeah, Tom Petty was such a real one. I mean, it sucks though because he was a total junkie and nobody knew it. Whatever. Big Lebowski, that was a big. Well, Carter Burwell was in the Pigeon band, the fucking band on Factory Records. I don't know if everybody knows that, but the guy who did all the Coen Brothers shit scores was in a band, an awful band on Factory Records briefly. He did one record because this is when Tony was trying to be a New Yorker. I was at school with the daughter of the lead singer of America. Yeah, the Del Fuegos guy. I don't know why he got that deal. It was like a conversation. He was in a room. Whatever. He got in the room. So he earned it. I didn't get in that room. I didn't get in the room for Duran Duran to do a real big thing book. Like a real book about Duran Duran from Notorious until John Taylor goes into rehab. I couldn't get in the room. If I could have gotten in the room, it's a possibility. I don't know. But, yeah. But yeah, again, Funky Town was so huge. Yeah, there it is. Steal Away. Robbie Dupree. Fucking came out of nowhere. Top 10, like, boom, all summer. And then Sailing, all the summer songs. You think about summer, it's so distinct back then because of the analog life, telephones, there's no internet. The world isn't 24/7. You change your behavior in the seasons. You go on vacations. You get, you rent you save up to do it. And life is such a slower paced parcel. Everything is parcels of time that you book out for like a year in advance. It's just so fucking weird. It's impossible to describe how fucking weird it was. But the charts in the summer, like, yeah, of course we still have fucking summer hits and Rude by Magic, fucking Riptide by Vance Joy, whatever the fuck his name is. Like, there are still summer hits that still feel like summer and make us nostalgic, and these patterns still exist and everything. But when I don't know, it's just like a hard pivot when you go. Turn It On Again is, oh my God, yeah, Duke was fucking ripping. Abacab was, 81 right off Duke? Man, this is when he started with Hugh Padgham getting the drum sound, the snare sound. Turn It On Again is so fucking rich, man. It's so good. It's still proggy, you're right, but best ABBA song is 1980. Yeah, they had a huge hit. What the fuck? I don't even. What the fuck? What was that big ABBA hit? Super Trooper, yeah. But that, I think this, because disco sucks. I don't know if Super Trooper did it in America. Oh God, Olivia Newton-John Magic though was 80. That song was fucking huge. Holy shit. Bosom Buddies was a Billy Joel sound-alike. It wasn't the actual song. No shit. That show was so huge. Tom Hanks plays him and his buddy dress up like women because it's an all-female apartment building. This sitcom called Bosom Buddies. It's what made Tom Hanks a star. And It's My Life is the theme song. It's a sound-alike. I totally fucking thought it was Billy Joel. It's probably because I heard It's My Life over and over again in my fucking sister's room. Xanadu was 80. Yup, big. But yeah, Bosom Buddies, I think about that all the time. That show was massive, and it's like, unfortunately, the whole attitude toward this sort of topic is so different now that it was considered that they were sort of in drag, and it was not. Trying to watch that show now, I don't even know. Try watching The Jeffersons now. It's all fucked. I don't know. Anyway, wow, that's a sound-alike. I got to go check that out. I really fucking thought. But yeah, I was talking about country. The fucking the Charlie Daniels Band was so huge. Like, they were still, I think they still got shown in the first hours of MTV. The fucking Charlie Daniels Band in America. This whole like Southern fucking thing was so real and so pervasive, and pop culture does not remember it at fucking all. I don't know. It's weird, man. Bucko 4. I could do a little bit. I didn't think this was going to turn into shit. I was not prepped, and I didn't feel like fucking streaming, and this has been some good fun, man. What the fuck ever. I should just go. I mean, it's not going to be airtight, but like, I mean, I could do the years like this, and this, shit comes up. I'm not going to fucking tell you the precise history of what was big and what wasn't. I mean, you go find out on your own if you want to. I don't know. But, we were talking at the beginning about like all the alt shit, and, 80, like Killing Joke is 80. There's so much good shit. I don't know. I mean, Remain in Light is 80. Crazy Rhythms is 80. Somebody mentioned Sound Effects. The Jam is 80. There's so much shit. Like fucking Level Tear Us Apart and Atmosphere, I think, are both 80. Kaleidoscope, Susie and the Banshees is 80. Someone asked me earlier to talk about Colin Newman's solo albums. I think A to Z, not to. I think A to Z is 80, and that has like Order for Order and Jury, which are both as good as any Wire songs. Kind of our swimming period. The Fall, fucking Grotesque is 80. What else? Oh man, I think Independence Day, Comsat Angels, Waiting for a Miracle is 80. I said Crocodiles. What else? Like, there's a ton of fucking shit from 80 that like, and yeah, of course, somebody mentioned early on 17 Seconds, and we did talk about Peter Gabriel 3. But yeah, it's just that stuff is kept alive is my point. Yeah. Did Joy Division's Closer come out in 1980? But it's like that stuff never died. It's eternal. People are still, you got to hear The Cure 17 Seconds. It never dies. The stuff that dies is the stuff that actually was the tenor and tone of those times. Everyone forgets it. Wipers, Is This Real was 1980. Yup. Totally. Oh man, are there people who are saying yeah, like confirming that Closer came out in 1980? If you don't know, I wrote a book about Joy Division. You can buy it on Amazon. Blizzard of Oz. Oh, yeah. Black Sea. Yep, you're right. Another One Bites the Dust. That's fucking 80. That's in there. Yeah. Oh God, Carole King, One Fine Day. So many weird things come and go. And Boss Skaggs charted in 80. I showed the Boss Skaggs record. That was JoJo was 80. Gaucho. The Dexys charted. Gino was 80. Fucking Dexys had their first hit in 80. Not in America, but in England. Closer's fucked, man. Closer is just, it's totally off fucking the planet. It's so funny seeing people as kind of like, punter style and as fucking Peter Hook and Bernard Sumner and shit. Like, Closer's not even like, it's Martin Hannett and Ian Curtis, and Tony Wilson totally got that. And he was trying to sell their mystique on, because these other fucking grunts, and it sucks because it's such a corny stereotype, but those two people were both on a fucking different zone of like, I want to do this, and like crazy. Costello's Get Happy. I Can't Stand Up for Falling Down. That Sam and Dave cover is one of my favorite fucking Elvis Costello songs. That song charted big time in England. Kings of the Wild Frontier is 80. Yep. But Get Happy is one of my favorite Costello albums. Unfortunately, the joke is that, he made it because he had this N-word experience in America, and it was like this apologia. Pylons Gyrate, that was also 80. I doubt many people heard that, I'm going to be honest. Return of the Durruti Column was 80. The first, I think. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, but this is the whole great period of early Durruti Column. Soft Boys, yep. Active. What I got? 109. I could do a fucking pint of Guinness. We're only in September 1980. Oh my God, Magic though. Fame too. Irene Cara's Fame from the movie Fame. Whoo, that was big shit. Wow, that song, Psychedelic First debut was 1980, and I went off on that fucking record like 2 streams ago or something. Psychedelic First debut, people miss that shit like crazy because of their big pop hits. It's like OMD. People only think of the pop hits. If you leave, don't leave now. Like, these bands had crazy early experimental shit. Psych First is not experimental, but that first record, it's like Virgin Prunes or like, those like fucked up dark dirgy bands. It's pretty grim. Fame, is awful. And then the TV show, you don't realize the TV show that came after it. No, nobody heard Pylon until REM covered Crazy. Like, just fact. No one outside Athens heard Pylon until REM covered him for Dead Letter Office. And then it was like their cause. And then eventually the whole Athens thing gets reincarnated and people hear about Love Tractor. And in the mid and late 90s, Love Tractor's records get reissued. And that's the first time I really hear Love Tractor. I mean, the DBs were big. They always got big upped. And obviously the B-52s are fucking massive, different universe. But, if you read like Party Out of Bounds and all those fucking oral history books about REM and shit in Athens, like that shit is so well documented. And in my opinion, it's Much Ado About Nothing. Sorry. TV Personalities, 1980. One of their records. I mean, they released like 25 records in 2 years. I don't fucking know. They had something in there. Just looking through here. Oh, the Kinks' Lola charted in 80 in America. That's true. And again, like You Shook Me All Night Long is like 97 on the Hot 100. Metal just was not getting anywhere near, but they sort of AC/DC, because this is the Mutt Lange record Lange. Hotter Than July. It charted again. Yeah, it popped in. I don't know why. It must have been used in something, or like tons of Americans never heard it. Jane from Occupied Europe is 80. Wild Planet, yeah. Games Without Frontiers, though. Where is it? Games Without Frontiers. I think it peaked at 54 in the United States. It's crazy to think that would be a hit, but as I said at the top, if you think about, it was a live version for the one for the road out. Thank you. That's right. That's one thing. Like, there's certain bands that are like, everybody knows everything about them and writes books about them. I know nothing about the Kinks. I've never really given a shit. Village Green Preservation Society does very little for me. Like, the really early Who Kinks, of course, but like the rich history of this band, massive blank spot for me. Never been a Kinks guy. And that's important. You should know that. Like, what the fuck? It's so fucking lame when people just want to, I know about that. Wikipedia. You got like, there's shit you don't know. I don't know shit about country. I just have observed over time that the thread of country's popularity, particularly at this moment in the early 80s, is totally ignored. It's weird because I knew it was on the radio because I was alive then. Games Without Frontiers was huge. Well, again, remember, this is a political song, and this is at the time of the Falklands. Well, not yet. The political theater of the very early 80s, and the final cut is the one that's about the Falklands. Excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself. But the political rubric and everything going on around that time, you have the Iranian hostage crisis, you have Reagan, there's a lot of drum beating going on around this time. And that's a big part of why Games Without Frontiers was a big hit. Not just its musical, inventiveness and uniqueness, but, oh my fucking God, the Manhattan's Shining Star. Okay, and then so in the summer, it came, I think, this is when Caddyshack comes out in the summer, because I'm All Right, Kenny Loggins gets in there. Dub, 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 dub. Oh, man, that fucking song is a jam. You got to love Kenny Loggins, man. You got to be there for Loggins and Messina. You got to be there for all that. Lydia Lunch's Queen of Siam, yeah, that's whatever. I mean, okay, yeah, it's big. I'm all right. Yeah, I can hit Kenny Loggins' fucking notes. Flying Lizards was, that was an 80. That was big, actually. That was our only big thing, really, I think. But yeah, Caddyshack, man, all the Lampoon guys had blown up. You got to get that book. The book about Caddyshack that the ESPN writer, I think, wrote is really good. But what am I thinking? There's a documentary. Is it a documentary about Lampoon where they talk about the dude who killed himself? Like, where is this? There's a document, whether it's a film or about Lampoon. Drunk, Stone, Brilliant, Dead. Fuck, that is so. I like, you're right in it. That reifies a moment and a through line in comedy, excess, rock and roll, SNL, all that shit. Lampoon, National Lampoon, Harvard Lampoon. The creation of the magazine, the gun pointing at the dog's head, like all those stories about all those outsized personalities, like that shit. Look. Give me a break. it does remind me of something like a Pitchfork. Like, it's on a much bigger scale. It's on a national, multinational Hollywood scale. But when you see these fucking misfits that are sitting around a shitty fucking office, you know, throwing fucking lit cigarettes at each other and like first access to drugs and all this shit, and then the money starts coming in, and it's like, fuck, this guy won't stop, and he's throwing up at shows, and he goes to premieres, and he's like, this movie fucking sucks, and he takes a piss on the floor. Like, that whole explosion of fucking, you know, true believers and people who want commercial potential and people who want stability and people who want success. Like, god damn, Drunk, Stone, Brilliant, Dead is so fucking raw and rad. Like, it's so good. Since the beginning of these streams, you've recommended me more books than I've read in the past 10 years. I read a lot. I do. I mean, as much as I listen to music and I've kept up with music variously in my life, I want to know the story. Anything interests me. I want to know the backstory of it. All right, I'm going to have a Guinness. We're going to do another 20 minutes. Now I got to fucking shut it down. What is it, 7? Oh, God. We're running. When I get to 1982, I'll have a very special totem to show everyone. Well, I can show it to you now, but I'll show it again in 82. Because I think it was May, was it? Was it May 82? I think it was May 82. When the Hacienda opened. This is my Hacienda membership card. It's real. Management reserves the right to refuse admission. Never been signed. Got that from a very special friend. But yeah, it's the coolest fucking thing I own. Like, by far. Yeah. Unsigned Hacienda membership card. Yeah, it is hot. Again, I essentially consider it priceless. Ambient 2, 3, and 4th World all 80. Yeah, and they all suck. There's like one good song on 2. How much do I want for it? I wouldn't sell that. Honestly, there's not an amount of money at this point in my life that would let me sell that. Do I show? Funny. Scene from Dukes of Hazzard, man, that shot the fuck up. My Love Opened the Door, Pete Townsend. Right, so I don't know. I think it's because the Who are like, On Land is okay. The Who were such a concert phenomenon in America throughout the entire 70s that even if they put out shitty album after shitty album, it was like, they're going to tour, right? And nobody will remember this. Nobody will remember that, like I said about Vacations, like, is The Who touring? Is Bowie touring? Is Pink Floyd touring? Is Springsteen touring? Like, these are events you can plan your life around because it's going to be the most incredible experience you've ever had. 1980 has an interesting thing to happen in May that sort of changes the popular expectation of where you can get entertainment and the limits of entertainment, which is the release of The Empire Strikes Back. And movies become like a whole different fucking game after that. Anyway, what else was big? The Cars had a kind of a lull here because it's touch and go, really weak period because they'd blown up really huge in the late 70s. So yeah, I'm all right. Fame. Oh, and then Eddie Rabbitt, Driving My Life Away. So that's fall. That's September 1980. I'm driving my life away. And that, another GTA song. I think that's in San Andreas, right? Hit Me With Your Best Shot, Pat Benatar. Man, they tried so fucking hard. Look, I got to be totally straight up honest. Like, the misogyny around Pat Benatar was really fucking crazy. Like, crazy. Openly just, like, talking about responses to her physical appearance. So fucked. Like, talent you know, whatever. We're gonna talk about that. She's only the best fucking singer like going at this moment. I mean, it's just weird. I changed my mind about remaking Are You a Speedwagon? Yeah, they started to blow up. Panorama is so bad. Yeah, it really was the death of the Cars, unfortunately. But you know, when they came back with Heartbeat City, it was just fucking nuts. I don't know if it's, you know, like the stored up, pent up Cars fans couldn't wait for them to be good again. But Jesus Christ, Drive was something else, and you might think was just as big easily. The Wanderer. Why the fuck did that chart? That's weird. Oh, Stevie Wonder, Master Blaster. Oh, the Donna Summer, The Wanderer. That's why. Oh man, Still Rock and Roll to me was like on the chart the entire year. But yeah, The Fall is when Another One Bites the Dust takes over. Bangles Story. He's So Shy. Pointer Sisters. Oh god, the Pointer Sisters. They did fucking Iron Man numbers in the 80s. That sounds like the worst ever UK Christmas number one. St. Winifred's Choir, There's No One Quite Like Grandma. Why wouldn't they just say grandmother? Wow, that's grim. Yeah, He's So Shy was big shit. And then Don't Ask Me Why, Billy Joel. Oh, God, the fucking... It's not Rhodes. What's the keyboard he plays in that? Don't Ask Me Why is one of those ones that makes my neck fucking pinch. Oh, man. Cliff Richard had a hit too. Dreaming. Wow. Fuck. Master Blaster was huge. But I did, you know, so I'm Coming Out's on the charts. It's so weird how much disco there still is. It was a very, like, as much as disco sucks that happened, it's still coming through in different ways. And then, you know, we started it out. The year begins. Kenny Rogers. Oh boy. Coward of the County rather. And then the year ends with Lady. Kenny, we're going to miss you. Lady is right into the fall and winter. Man, and then Robbie Dupree's follow-up to Steal Away, Hot Rod Hearts. This went top fucking 20, this fucking piece of shit song. Chaka Khan were massive in the fucking 80s. Did Chaka Khan have a hit in 80? Because I remember them from the later, like, big 83 glam shit. Did they have a chart hit then? I don't know. Man, there's so much grim shit. Benachar did chart, though. Hit Me With Your Best Shot did chart. We were talking about her. God, fucking... Oh, Kim Carnes, Cry Like a Baby. Holy shit. What was that other one? Oh, yeah, someone that I used to love by Natalie Cole. Wow. And like I said, Emotional Rescue was massive. Shalimar probably had some slams. Some big jams, but yeah, man. Oh God, Paul Simon, Late in the Evening was 80. That was big. There's so much bad shit. My kids are losing it. I knew I was going too late. Yeah, so I mean, when you get into the November and toward the end of it, Lady just runs the whole thing. That's why I was going off about Kenny, because Christmas 1980. I remember it, and it was Lady by Kenny Rogers. Like, that shit was fucking... You couldn't turn the dial without hearing Lady. And we lost our boy, Kenny. Doobie Brothers are still charting, One Step Closer. And Rod Stewart had Passion on. Oh, yeah. But again, here, Texas in My Rearview Mirror by Mac Davis. Good shit. Hold On by Kansas was in there, the Hot 100. Yeah. But somebody mentioned the Vapors. That fucking horrible song, Turning Japanese. If you don't know what that racist trope means, you can look it up on the internet. But it's pretty fucking gross. Police actually made it to number 40, which is pretty nuts, or 41. That's a really fucking annoying song. Oh my God, no, it made it to 20 to 30. Did it get higher than 30? It's the most annoying fucking song. I hate that song. No, it didn't. Daryl Hall and John Oates cover You Lost That Loving Feeling. Number 12. Oof. But, you know, it took the whole year to get Pat Benatar into the top 10. And on the, I think it's on the last chart, Hit Me With Your Best Shot is number 10. Yep. On the last chart. And Tide Is High then comes up. Oh, shit. My mic fell out. This is an apropos way to end with a technical difficulty. It's because I stepped on the fucking cord like an idiot. Get it in the swiggle here. Boo, boo, boo. Sorry about this, guys. Woo! Come on. I got to slide it through the whole goddamn thing. Oh, this is brutal. Sure. What are you thinking? Your microphone, your laugh mic sucks. The whole thing is so cheap. Well, that'll work for now. But yeah, so the end of the year is Tide Is High and Lady. And the instant that he's killed, just like Starting Over, John Lennon. It's just everything changed after he got fucking shot and murdered. And 80 is kind of like this weird free-for-all of all these different genres. You know, disco's not dead yet, despite disco sucks. Country is raging. This whole trucker, you know, BJ and the Bear fucking shit, Clint Eastwood. I think in 1980 he did Bronco Billy. I think the movie Bronco Billy is 1980, right? So much fascination with the highway, trucking, all that shit. It's still way in there. And all that shit, Black Oak, Arkansas, and the Oak Ridge Boys, and, you know, like I said, Eddie Rabbit. It's just vaporized. All right, one more thing I could talk about. What do we got? Oh, God. 9 to 5 too. That's the end of the year. Weird. I wonder when the fuck that movie came out that Dolly Parton's 9 to 5, the theme from the movie, was hitting around Christmas. That must have charted forever. It was number one on and off in the spring of 81, but like it must have come out in the late Every Which Way But Loose. Yeah, totally. 78. So that whole like CB, you know, 9 are on 1. How many candles are you burning? All that bullshit. Well, there's such a good Carl Pilkington bit about when he was a little kid and he wanted to be on a fucking CB. Alan Parsons Project, Games People Play. Holy shit, that was 80. And God, such weird, just songs that you can spend time. Holy shit, I'm wrong. Everybody's Got to Learn Sometime fucking charted in America. It fucking cracked the top 20 for 1 week, 2 weeks at the end of 1980. And then it started falling off and pretty much vanished January 81. The Corgis fucking charted in America. I had no fucking idea. Wow. What you know, what you learn. That's crazy. Yeah, and Whip It doesn't start charting until January, but its first appearance, I think, is the last week of 80. Yeah, so Whip It's at number 27 the last week of 1980. But that really is like, goes nuts for weeks and weeks and months, and Devo becomes like the thing, and like you know, everyone's yelling out their car windows Devo at anybody who tries to look different. You know, it essentially becomes like a dog's body for homophobic slur. Yeah, but that's pretty much it. Corgis confirmed household names. I fucking blew that one. That's gonna do it. So wrapping it up for the eve. But yeah, that was fun. I mean, it's loose. It's funnier. It's better that way. I'd rather have things I get wrong and, you know, we sharpen it up and have fun. So maybe I'll do 81 next time. Yeah.